Will, you ready to be funny?
No.
Oh,
see?
yeah.
Timing.
All right. Now remember, stare down at the barrel of the camera and don't blink. Welcome to an all-new episode of Work in Progress with John Lane and Will Barfield. This podcast explores leadership traits under stress with a special guest each week. We use a simple and accurate OAD assessment to identify key personality traits or superpowers, as well as the shadow side, kryptonite traits that appear when we're under stress. As always, we'll have some pod banter, shameless plugging, and we'll even let our guests talk for a bit. Of course, no humble brags. Welcome to the show. All right, everybody, welcome to that was smooth. Look, we are a live podcast. We are a one-take operation. We are brought to you by Slipshod Productions. But welcome to a new episode of Work in Progress with John Lane and Will Barfield. We have some special guests, but we also have Will.
Yes.
What is our? Sorry. Remember in rehearsal? How do we lead off every week?
With banter?
Banter. Look at you.
Thank you for the help, Will. Will whispered it for those of you who are listening and could hear that.
Yeah.
I thought maybe John had something to drink at lunch.
Oh no. Just water.
Yeah,
just a LaCroix seltzer, which I did not bring my prop, so we'll just stipulate that. I'll fix that in post. So state of the pod, Will, you're asking me. So say again.
I was just telling Will that you're always shilling for sponsors.
Someone's got to pay for this operation. So this is our 14th recorded episode, technically 16th, but two were lost. Oh well. But what's super nice is that we, I think, crossed an interesting milestone for us. We are officially booked through Memorial Day, and we even have one or two in June. So somehow this isn't terrible. I mean, I know we aimed for maybe okay, but I think we've moved on to not terrible.
If you set the bar really low, I mean, overachievement's easier.
Yeah, I think that's smart. And thank you for being part of our not so terrible. So thank you for that. We are even getting to the point where we are establishing guest criteria, which we'll talk about maybe on another pod, but we are actually screening some folks. And so that makes me feel, I don't know what that makes me feel, to be honest, but let's do our analysis.
Victor was short today.
Yeah, we're trying to move us on. Okay. Well,
Get to the content.
Get to the content.
I've been ready with jokes.
Pull them in. So last week we had by the time anybody sees this, last week will have occurred. Where'd you go? There you go. There you go. But we now have another builder. So Will, we have to work harder on we have to work, you two together. I'm not sure I like this. We have to work harder on our quadrant diversity, among other diversity things, but we have another builder among us. So
pressure on you, Will McGuire. When you do your suggestion.
Yes, let's put the pressure on him. Oh, good call. I like that.
Diversification.
Yeah. So
were you hearing an echo with me?
I'm hearing an echo. Yeah.
I don't hear an echo.
It just started.
Oh no. High production value. Well, I don't hear it, and I'm the producer, although I'm half deaf. So shall we carry on?
Yes.
Who am I?
John Lane.
And who are you?
I'm Will McGuire. Will Barfield.
And who are we?
We're absolutely a work in progress.
You got solos. Yeah, you're a solo. Beautiful. We're a work in progress. And we have a special guest. We always have a special guest. I'm not sure what makes them special, to be honest. But they're here and they're a guest. William McGuire. Will, if that's your real name. Please introduce yourself.
Well, Will McGuire, nice to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Oh, love it.
See, when I take a sip of water, someone else is talking. That's you, William.
Yeah, that'd be me.
What do you do for a living?
I help show founders how to raise capital from anybody in the community. So you've probably heard of Kickstarter, but I'm on the opposite end, the actual investment end. So people can take real life stakes in companies that are local.
So you've got a leadership role, what, within your company and also with your founders?
Yeah, so I started the company in McCullough back in 2019 because I was on a quest to figure out how our number 9 economy in the nation, North Carolina, was behind the scenes, behind like California and Texas and some other ecosystems. Could not figure it out. So since that time, we've helped about 25 different startup founders.
Wow.
Have a growing community of them, and it's been kind of cool seeing the growth of what we call investment crowdfunding across the state. Actually, just grew a little over 140% last year. So
wow. And are you only taking investment from within the state or just for companies incorporated within the state, or both?
Great question.
Thank you.
Basically, the founders that come to McCullough, they basically choose whether or not they want to seek investment from people after they've seen how they can grow their companies. And oftentimes they choose to take it from pretty much anybody in the nation that can help grow their company. So we've seen cool things like $100 check writers next to $250,000 check writers on the exact same terms that are all helping grow companies together in $2 million plus rounds. So it's a pretty cool world.
That is cool. And how do you know each other?
How do
Me and Will?
Yeah.
Oh, we were part of an exclusive club of Wills. There's just a whole group of us that work together.
You all know each other?
Yeah. It's actually a therapy group. No, I'm kidding. Will and I were introduced to the network. We were trying to remember who did it, and I don't know if we can recall that, but we met each other.
Scintillating podcast. Scintillating story.
Yeah. Mentioned a couple of years ago, and just, I've got history with, staffing and recruiting work for a lot of startups and high growth. And we just were a little bit blown away that they hadn't crossed paths yet. So I love what Will was doing with crowdfunding. Most people, when they think investment, they're thinking, angel, they're thinking venture, maybe private equity, but that, you can crowdfund and be an individual contributor and put $100 in here and $100 in there and $1,000 over there. It really helped some of these companies. Was something I didn't know a lot about, and I wanted to learn more. And as I learned more, I just really enjoyed interacting with Will. He's a great guy. He's a dedicated professional to the mission of helping North Carolina emerge. Can't be the number 9 economy and be in the shadows of so many other states and markets. So he's dedicated to that. I love the founders that he's working with. He's a leader of his own organization, and he's a founder. And then he helps all these other leaders. Will, before we leave the slide, and we do need to move on, and John, I know that time is important today, but Will, give us a sense of kind of where crowdfunding was in terms of the amount, that was happening in North Carolina when you founded in Colo in 19, and where we are now.
It's a great question. I'd probably have to pull up the chart, but I think we were somewhere around like 300, 400K raised, maybe from, 2 or 3 startups at the time that year. And now we're over, I think, 30 raised, 25, 30 raised last year. And there's 11.7 million raised in that 1 year alone. So as of January, we're actually above 20 million now.
Very cool.
Relatively. Wow. So it's run pretty rapidly. And the coolest part to me is it's not just for certain types of companies, it's for all types of companies. So there's been over 250 different industries funded this way. Everything from place where you go get coffee to nanotech companies to even people launching orbitals up in the space for like people that want to travel into space, and they're all successfully getting funded. So it really does represent the diversity of what's being built and innovated in our backyard that people use every single day. People don't know that, founders don't know they can raise from anybody in their community. And people in the community don't know they can actually take stakes, put live investment into companies in the backyard.
Love that.
And if they want to learn more, they go to Incolo's website, they go to your LinkedIn. How can people who are interested in, connecting with you and with this crowdfunding, move to the next level?
Yeah, founders can just go to McCullough.io and got plenty of examples there, along some other places too. LinkedIn's a great source as well. We constantly publish out the success stories, not only within like McCullough's community, but what's happening across the state, as well as what's happening nationwide in this industry. So it's really cool.
Sweet. John, let's go. Run us through the.
Let's go. So it sounds like somebody who can do that has some pretty interesting superpowers. So we're going to get to that. I'll just remind everybody that we use the OAD assessment platform to generate the superpowers. It's a very brief, easy 5-minute assessment, and it produces something that looks like this. William, that's what I'm calling you, Mr. McGuire. William, there you go. So you're in trouble. How does it feel to be reduced to a two-dimensional table?
Oh man, it simplifies life a little bit.
Yeah, it's like your animals.
Felt pretty good. No, I mean,
How so?
The survey was kind of interesting because it really did only take like 5 minutes. In fact, I had to look up a couple words. I guess my goal as a child of being a professional speller did not work out. But aside from that, it was a great survey.
Awesome. Well, let's break it down. So through the magic of TV wizardry, Will, are you impressed?
Is this your way to cope with the lack of a pointer? Is that why you're doing
this?
Yes.
John's
got a beef with the users of this software, the developers.
Might be a sponsor, so we have to kind of knock that nonsense off. But
right, go ahead, John.
Yeah. So in the OAD assessment results, we measure 4 primary constructs: assertiveness, extroversion, patience, and detail orientation. And then they come out on a chart. That's where the fun end ends. Very professional. And then the way you read this is you look at that little red line, and that is the median line. Anything to the right of that is dominant. Anything to the left of it is subordinate. And then we break it down. So Will's primary construct is his patience, and then followed by assertiveness, extroversion, and detail orientation. So I look at this and I see somebody who has the patience of Job, which is probably pretty good working with founders, but also who has high assertiveness and extroversion and will put him or herself out, and also is comfortable delegating some of the details away because you've got a lot to do. So that is our friend William. William breaks into, we talked about this earlier, the quadrant of builder, and just at a high level, folks in that quadrant, such as myself and William, are confident and persuasive. So we're going to hear some of that confidence and persuasiveness come out under the scorching interrogation of one Mr. Will Barfield. Will, why don't you dig in here?
I will. Yeah, I again, thank you, John. Will, since I'm speaking to you and you'll be speaking to me, we can will each other. It's more confusing when John calls out Will and we don't know what to do.
I agree.
But as John said, this is kind of the generic readout that anyone who falls in that builder negotiator quadrant is going to receive. So we're not going to spend a ton of time here, but is there one of these superpowers that stood out to you that you'd want to comment on a little bit on this slide that is accurate?
I think optimistic.
And what is it about that? Dig in a little bit. Talk about your optimism and how that plays in what you do.
Yeah, I mean, I think all my life I've kind of been optimistic, but I think it really hit me when I was 14 because I learned I needed it's called a cardiac pacemaker to keep me alive.
Oh.
And ever since then, I've just had a different appreciation for life. So I've always tried to go into stuff with the glass half full to try to see the good in it while being conscious and conscientious of what may not be. But I don't know. In general, I just enjoy being optimistic.
Well, I didn't know that about you. Thank you for that. Part of this whole podcast is sharing and vulnerability. No, I didn't know that.
Well, don't come near me with a magnet.
Oh,
No. I don't see you in person that often anyway.
That's right. We've only met once in person, I think.
It's crazy. All right. Generic kryptonite page, right? So let's talk about one of these and give us just a little bit of context.
I think pleasing others is it. I work with so many different startup founders and just people in general. And it's really easy to fall into the trap of saying yes all the time because I don't know, I see like what they're building and it's really exciting to want to be part of that. So pleasing others would probably definitely be my kryptonite.
Before we leave here, when that tendency to over please, how does that become a problem? Is it because there's you find that you want to help so many that you under deliver to certain ones because you can't be everything for everyone? How does saying yes too much or too often end up hurting you or those that are relying on you or depending on you or expecting expertise from you?
Yeah, well, I think part of it is just could spend too much time on work versus family in some cases,
right.
but also just in general, like I believe I'm more of like a multi-potentialite in nature. So when I've invested in 90 plus companies personally, they're all across the board. Like, so the sometimes the issue that occurs is not so much about the quality of helping each one, but not being able to focus on which like founders maybe the most sounds bad, most important to help to move the mission of what we're trying to move forward versus necessarily the focus on any individual one. So sometimes I have a hard time narrowing things into like what the most important focus item is at the time.
Got it. Well, that can be. I mean, you're talking about that many founders that you're trying to help.
That's right.
Yeah.
Across so many different industry sectors.
Yeah. And that's like I said, the optimism is actually part of the kryptonite because it wants me to lead the
exactly right.
Somebody.
Well, and that's a great point, a great segue. Thank you for the click through, John. The kryptonite is what it is because it's the shadow side, the inversion of our superpowers when we're under pressure or stress, right? So that's a great point, Will. Now we're on a slide where these were your own reflections of the readout. This is where we get into your take on just kind of the general accuracy of the tool as it relates to what it said about you and the things that you really believe in the work that you're doing for McCullough and for so many across the state. Talk to us about these superpowers and why you made the notes you made here.
Yeah, great question. So I think one of the things that people have told me is that I'm good at connecting dots across like disparate things. So to me, like one of the coolest activities we ever did as a company, for example, just giving something, was the fact that since we're industry agnostic, we literally do support any type of industry. We had a Main Street business owner and somebody developing a pretty cool materials tech in the same room just for a founder event. And those two probably wouldn't have been connected in a different type of accelerator because they're so focused on a particular industry sometimes. But when we connected them together, they were able to help each other in a way that they never knew they would have been able to help each other like professionally. Awesome. And that was really cool to see that type of dot. So I've tried to incorporate that, connecting dots across things that seem disparate just by pulling people together.
That is a great superpower. Before we move off, I'd like to understand what solutioning is.
Great question. I like to build things. I like to come up with ideas. So
Builder.
Being able to see dots that connect across disparate things leads to, my preferred meeting with somebody is going in and figuring out how to create something new or build on something that's been created. And that to me is a much more preferred conversation than coming in with a preconceived notion or a playbook of how to do things.
I like that. How about when things go off the rails?
Yeah, I think, not leaning on my team as much as I should. I do have a tendency to, everybody does want to have things their way. And I'm trying to get better about the process of everybody's got great ideas. Sometimes they just process it differently. So I've got to incorporate my patience into letting people process that. So not leaning on my team as much as I should is sometimes just not allocate enough time to get things done or have that process of, same type of journey that I enjoy doing, they should be able to do too. So that has hurt us in the past, I think, because a lot of the great ideas that came out when I allowed that time. And I can't imagine how many ideas haven't come out because sometimes I haven't.
Ooh. So opportunity cost.
Yeah, I've got some pretty interesting examples I could share later, but let me share them now.
Yeah, I'd love one right now because we're on this topic. That's a great point.
Okay, so we had a team member on our team when we were doing a rebranding from what our previous name was, Proud Fund NC, to McCullough. And, we're going through one of those branding exercises. You get everybody in a room, throw adjectives up on a board, and try to pick, what may represent the company name. So we'd throw a bunch of adjectives up on the board, like connected, community, innovative. Your daughter actually, Will, said juicy.
Yeah.
She saw as an adjective out of what we were building. And Eric from our team said, well, I guess we got to go combine those. And Anya from our team went, McCullough, innovative, connected community. And there were a bunch of other words that represented that. And I thought there for a minute, I was like, in the back of my mind, I'm like, that can be a great name. So I was like, man, just kind of moved on. And 3 days later, we come back. And lo and behold, that's the name we picked because we were like, we can't think of any other name. Mm-hmm. And Anya said, guys, I just Googled McCullough. It's actually a word. We're like, what? And she's like, yeah. And you'll never believe what it means. It means to cultivate. So like cultivating communities together. So like, that's the name. So just by, getting out of my own mind and letting the team process things because we forced ourselves into a process, I think we came up, or Anya came up, a team came up with a cool name. Whereas if I had done it my way, it would have been something really bad, terrible name. So it was a very humbling moment for myself.
Well, that's great to recognize that either you get lost in your own process or you get lost in your own head. It doesn't sound like it's a trust or delegation thing. I know how much you appreciate and respect your team, and I enjoyed the collaborative work that you and I did with Anya as well. She's spectacular.
Yeah, she is.
But the key to this self-analysis is recognition of that kryptonite and how do we apply it, stop, recognize it, and then get better as leaders. And we're learning all the time. Anything else on there on this page that you want to hit on? I just brought up the trust piece, but we've also talked about the saying yes too much. But you want to double click on anything else here before we move on?
Yeah, I mean, I've been too fast to trust people, I'll say, in the past and not validate things, and that's definitely burned myself or others. And that's something I've tried to improve upon. Multiple examples of that, but that's one that I'm really trying to work on because it's have an optimistic demeanor. It's hard to not trust people up front, I guess, based on what they say, face value.
Well, here I am again. Let me get this right. See that high E?
Yep.
That, especially with a high A, one of the common things, not everyone, but fairly common or typical is, and this is true in my life, and I also am a builder, is trusting too quickly and then getting heartbroken. While people on the other side of the quadrant, these folks tend to start out being more skeptical and then perhaps working their way to trust. I tend to start out in the trust mode, and then sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. But it sounds like you've had some of that yourself, where with your builder personality, you've started there, and then maybe that hasn't worked out, and you guard against it now.
Yeah, and I have had to put guards up, and it's been an interesting process to try to deploy. I guess I don't really know how to word that, but since you have the same tendency, I'm sure you can relate.
Absolutely, and I think a lot of people can. So, Will, if I may, this last one, what happens, William, when you have to do a lot of repetitive tasks? I know you wrote
terrible at repetitive tasks.
Say why. Say why. Or how.
Why? I don't know. I'm just bad at that.
What happens though when you do repetitive tasks?
I just don't get them done. So like if there's something I have to do that's repetitive, I don't get it done and stuff falls through the cracks. So I've had that, happen multiple times. So I've finally found that I have to just put people in place that are good at doing, I'll say it's more consistent tasks. I'm very bad at consistency across something that's repetitive from like a process standpoint. So I have to have somebody hold me accountable. That's
interesting. Well, this is where, I get better at this. Your detail orientation, some of that is attention to detail. There's a little like a rifle shot of that inside detail orientation, but another one is being comfortable with delegating. So in your case, you might be comfortable with delegating because you don't like or you're not good at it, but luckily you don't feel the need to hold on to all of those tasks and do them poorly or never do them when they need to be done. So I think that is an interesting combination, I think, of your traits.
So I'm going to take the wheel here again, gentlemen. You brought something up, Will, earlier about family, and the kryptonite of saying yes too much to too many people professionally, and then it impacting family life. I know from interacting with you, whether it's an email or a LinkedIn message or a text, you're always on.
Yeah.
And you respond quickly, and it could be evening, it could be the weekend. And, I'm sending you a note, you'll get back to me on Monday. And then, there's my response. So that always on piece is, a factor of your personality, but that can also invade family. So when we're looking at the OAD results, strengths, weaknesses, superpowers, kryptonite, what did you gather from, the readout of yourself, this analysis, this conversation today, that are things that you can take forward, work, home, social, right? That can help you be better as a leader, professionally, but also in other aspects of your life, personally, socially.
Well, it's a great question. I mean, it's funny because part of the prep for this, you asked me something that happens. It's kind of like a blooper, right? And it directly applied to the family side. I'm like, that's so perfect because of what we just went through here today. But I mean, just tactics I'm trying to implement personally, or trying to put like a block out at the end of the day, so that when my kids get off the bus and not on a meeting at say 4:30, when they get off, they don't see their dad just interfacing right here. I'm up, get out of the chair, actually go walk over and say, I'm glad to see them, So I'm trying to get, that's recent. That came into focus pretty recently. So trying to model after those I know that have done that pretty well in their life, and they're pretty good about consistently putting things like that on their calendar and sticking to it, which I have a hard time sometimes doing with that aspect of my life.
Yeah.
That's something I'm trying to get people to hold me accountable to that.
Like that. All right, I like that. All right, we're coming to the end of our time with you today. Can you think of who's next?
That's great. Can I give you two? Because I heard you might give you two, and I thought I could at least do that.
Yeah. You go ahead and overachieve.
I'll
just
try.
Help us with the connections.
We'll do. So, Will, one of them, because you introduced me, Lauren McCullough.
Yes. Yep.
What I really think's neat about her is that, she's building a tech company right now. She's also a fellow founder, helping fellow founders out through McCullough. But she also just opened up a retail shop with her partner called Aurora Flow. And so she's kind of got like this cool like acumen across different industry segments.
Oh, can't wait to talk to her.
Yeah, so that's really cool. And then
she's super.
Yeah, she's very super. And then Dr. Brittany Barreto, I don't think a lot of people here know her, But she helped start the Capitol factory, is instrumental to that down in Texas, which is kind of like a co-working space plus funding, pretty big scene down there. But she's one of the leading people within a space called femtech, not fintech, like financial tech, but femtech, everything that impacts women.
Oh,
and
cool.
Women's health basically impacts everybody's health. And so she's built up a pretty cool coalition, funding sources for it, community around it. And she's put in the headquarters for femtech right here in the state of North Carolina.
Oh, it's amazing.
So the type of, impact they can have, because a lot of the data on female health was done like back in the I want to say 60s or 70s, predominantly just on white women. And we know that different races, different backgrounds, etc., interact differently. There's just not a lot of good data to actually advance health and innovation. I've got 2 daughters and a wife. We all know women.
Yes, we do.
That type of stuff needs to be,
I think that's great,
quicker. So I think getting that type of, both the diversity, what Lauren's working on across different industries, and what Dr. Brittany Barreto is working on with the community of people, they're focused on advancing that type of innovation. It would be really cool to bring into the forefront.
Well, we would love to have them on. And
thank you. Help us with that. They sound, Lauren, I know, is outstanding, but the good doctor would be great to have. Really, really
awesome.
Impressive.
Yeah, happy to connect you.
What a show, everybody. William, we could talk to you all day. I don't think our listeners would stay on that long. So we're going to say goodbye. Thank you for joining us. Bye.
Thanks, Will. Really appreciate you coming, buddy.
Oh, wait. Who am I?
You're John Lane.
And who are you?
I'm Will Barfield.
And we are
clearly
a work in progress. Thanks, everybody. Have a great week. Bye, William.
Bye.
Work in Progress is a podcast presentation of Slipshod Productions, available on LinkedIn and YouTube. Executive produced and starring John Lane and Will Barfield. Talent booking, production, and editing by John Lane. Thanks for watching. See you next week.